Welcome to my show, Athena Autistic Artist College. And our guest is Tara. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much, Maria.
You're welcome. Tara, maybe give a little story of your background, what's like growing up when you were younger.
Sure. I don't really remember a lot of my growing up. Autistic and with ADHD, a lot of that time I was in survival mode. So it was very foggy, but I did have a very supportive family. At the time who didn't know much about what I was experiencing. I guess we didn't get the internet until I was in fifth grade. So we didn't really have that kind of information then. But they were very supportive. And, but it led me to really want to reach out to other families with kids that are like I used to be, and help making sure they have the support that they need.
And what was like for you in school, like education? Was it challenging for you?
It depended on what the subject was. If it was something I really enjoyed, like English, anything with reading or writing, I excelled. With things that I was not as fond of, especially like maths, uh, I was able to keep up, but it was definitely a weight on my like self-esteem and feeling like, why can't I do this if everyone around me is able to do it? Those kind of thoughts that showed up for me. Yeah.
And what was like social? Was that awkward for you? It was challenging?
It was, I think, I learned at a very young age. I would say probably in about first grade to start mirroring the people around me that um, I felt like that I could, mirror them, kind of mimic their movements, the way they talked, but also because they did have similar values. Because I really did want to do well in school. Um, and so I would find kind of that group that I felt like, okay, I can get by if I act this certain way. But it was difficult. There were a lot of times where I wasn't certain. I could tell that people were not really responding to me, or something felt off. That things would kind of just go silent, and after I would say something, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know what they're thinking or what their faces are telling me right now. Um, and just try to be very funny about it. Humor was a very big uh, coping skill for me in social situations. Or sometimes I would shut down as I got older and just kind of keep to myself. Definitely as I got older, it got harder, right? Because I think as we got older, other kids, there are more expectations around those social interactions. Um, it just became hard to keep up with that for sure.
So you did masking a lot, like you said, copying.
Yeah, so it was so funny because growing up, I'd always call myself a chameleon, and now it's actually something that's showing up in the neurodivergent, bubble, where it's not just like the masking of, kind of putting on, a calm demeanor and or a pleasant face. It's also again copying tone of voice, intonation, vocabulary, but hand movements, how I stand. Yes, so again, I didn't know that I was doing this at the time, but as I started to think back, I was like, oh wow, yes. And I think for a lot of people, it's very hard to think back because you were so often trying to imitate, that you didn't really have a sense of self until, um, I guess it was, you realize what was, oh, that's what was happening. And you start to try to unravel where you are, where yourself is. Um, so yes, it was, definitely a way of surviving. But at all times, my nervous system was constantly in a state of, survival, fight or flight, right? And so, there was kind of like this, almost kind of like a foggy. For the longest time, I was told it was dissociation. It wasn't dissociation. It was I was so overstimulated that my vision was going blurry, and so I would be doing these things while also not actually seeing the world, in a clear state. Um, and it's not uncommon. I've spoken with other, parents who are also neurodivergent, and this is something that's, a lot of people have experienced, and thankfully now we know so much more about it. But there's still a lot of room for growth.
Did you have like a learning challenge, like a disability, like a learning disability in some areas of academics?
I did. So I was, I believe it was called remedial maths, um, and in high school. And so, I spent, and at the time though, there was never, an assessment, or like, hey, let's see, what might be going on here. It was just kind of like, okay, you're not doing so well in this area, so we're going to put you in this class. Um, and before that, they had actually put me in the gifted program until I started failing at maths. So, that was very confusing for me at the time. As a child, I was just like, well, one second you're telling me that I'm capable, and the next you're telling me, there's something I'm doing wrong. And, but no one was actually explaining it. So yes, I did, end up doing, remedial maths in high school. And then as I went into college, I tested again into, the higher support maths, class. And, after I got done with the necessary classes, I was like, I'm finished with it. That's not going to be a part of, where I go next, because I was just so frustrated with it.
Now, language or communication, how you copied to manage to fit into that social situation if you were needed to communicate with that person?
It's a really good question. Um, I believe growing up, starting from a young age, my language was, very. I think of my daughter, my oldest, who, I remember taking her to start, preschool, and they said, "Oh, it's like talking to a little professor," And I was like, this was kind of around that time that I was learning more about language and, like Gestalt language, and, how we scaffold and build on language. And, I was like, I also had kind of a more, like it had a higher vocabulary, but it was still kind of, misplaced. So, I often would be very quiet and observant until I felt like I had, a good grasp of the social environment and what was expected of me. Um, and, try that I understood to at least some degree what the rules were in that social environment. And then I would, um, you know, partake in that environment. As I got older, um, it got a lot harder to do that. And I started, um, just finding myself isolating a lot more often, um, and, keeping, fewer and fewer close relationships.
When were you diagnosed on the spectrum?
I was diagnosed in June of 2025 with autism. I had initially been diagnosed with bipolar disorder for about 10 years. And it was when I found a very neurodivergent affirming therapist and medical provider and did the full psychological assessment analysis. And they're like, oh, no, it's not bipolar disorder. It seems like, this is more, this definitely fits more along the line of ADHD. And then later, as I continue to explore, they're like, okay, now, this also fits along the line of the autism spectrum.
When did you have your daughter?
So she is now 8 years old. She was born in 2017. And then I had two more.
Are your children, your daughters, are born on the spectrum too?
My oldest, yes, she is on the spectrum, and my youngest, a child, is also on the spectrum. Um, and my middle child is at this time is, I don't believe so.
So when you learned that your daughter had autism and had that understanding, when you read about it, did that help you to understand how your life went in the direction?
Yes. I'm chuckling a little bit because it seems like it's very common among my peers that it's usually after our children have been diagnosed and been provided the supports that they need, that we catch on that this is a genetic. And it absolutely, well, it drove me, for one, because I wanted to be all as informed and knowledgeable as I could about how to support my daughter. And in that, right, so that was, became my hyper focus or my spin. It's all I do now. And along that lines, I was starting to feel very understood, right? I felt like I was really understanding myself as I was learning about the experience and what it looks like neurologically and as well. So it definitely was what brought me. I don't think I would have found it, honestly, if it hadn't have happened the way it did. I don't think I would have found myself.
As you learned about autism through your daughter's eyes, how that taught you to knowing the direction for her education to give her that support that she needs, and working with the teachers and.
Absolutely, that's amazing. I love that question so much. The first thing I want to say is that she knows herself, and I let her, I watch her, right? So I've had a lot of practice observing, and I do that now, but with a different light in it. Observing like where her strengths are, what her interests are, what matters to her, and the things that she does find difficulties with, what she expresses struggles with, and whether verbally or non-verbally. And I in that way I make sure she's taking the lead on that, and then I follow, right? So where we can make sure her education is using her interest and things that really matter to her, and expanding them through her means of learning and or topics that they're covering. And right now we've been very, very we really like the Montessori approach. It is more self-led, and but there's still structure within it, right? So something that many of us with autism and ADHD, many of us who are autistic and ADHD, that finding that right balance of structure and novelty, it can be very difficult. So it's right now we're very thankful that we found the education space that we have.
Your son, who does not have autism, how he learned of the acceptance, for his sister, because sometimes that could be a challenge. And what was
Yes.
your thoughts on that?
Sure, absolutely. So I just want to make sure I clarify. So I have my oldest who is autistic and ADHD. My middle child, my middle daughter, who is right now, as it seems most not showing, mostly neurotypical in terms of how she's seeing the world and exploring the world. And then my youngest son is also autistic. So my middle child, she is, well, the middle child, and she's experiencing, watching her and her younger brother attending these supports, having these discussions with me and their father. And we make sure that was one of my fears. I actually wrote an essay about it. How, I found myself feeling more concerned for my quote unquote neurotypical kid than my autistic children, because, I feel I can really understand that the experience that my other two are having. And so I've made sure to really include her in those conversations, explaining what, but trying to keep it right in terms for a 5-year-old. So a lot of that looks like with just empathy, practicing empathy, and with all of them, and among themselves. And I've seen my oldest go, oh, that was my, maybe she has a moment where she has a hard time being flexible in the moment, and she'll say, my ADHD brain right now is having a hard time with being flexible with this. I need to go take some space. And my middle child will be, oh, okay, that's fine. Take some space too. So it's really, they're really learning together. We're all learning as a family how to navigate this and how to be there for one another.
Wonderful. The feelings and emotions, sometimes for autism, is very difficult to understand the feelings. How was that for you as a child, or as you grew up to a parent, and how that is for your children?
Sure. So I want to make sure I understand. So are you asking what it was like for me as a child, and then also now what is it like for me as a parent and my children?
Yeah, the feelings, understand, sometimes we might not find the words to express what we feel in the moment, or how to handle the situation, or where is that feeling coming from and why we're feeling that.
Yeah. I think for me as a child, I didn't have that space to have those big emotions, to feel, I felt very intensely, and I still do. And I didn't have the space to do that. And, I think over time, it led to more and more mental health, problems on top of, already different. And then as a parent, all emotions are welcome here. I don't want to, sometimes if they don't know where the emotion's coming from or why they're having it, that's okay. That's not in the moment when the emotions are there and they feel bigger than ourselves. The focus is on feeling safe and feeling accepted. And I think that's really the main point in our home. is to create that safety and that feeling of acceptance. We accept you, we love you, whatever emotion comes, and you're safe. Um, and being as a parent, being that calm space. And later, when we're maybe they're feeling more grounded and I'm feeling more grounded, we can explore that in a little more depth. Maybe try to bring language to it, or maybe just acknowledging where we felt it in our body. Just becoming more in tune with our body, right? So many of us struggle with the with knowing what's happening in our body in the moment, and it might show up much later. So that's something that we're really focusing on right now, especially with them being so little, and emotions usually do show up much bigger than their little bodies. So
You go by unmasking. Maybe you could, share your thoughts about that.
sure, sure. So I'm trying to. Wow, that brings a lot of emotion up for me, because I think it was as a parent that I was able to start stripping away these layers. It makes me think of that Shrek movie. Like I'm an onion and I'm pulling off all these different layers, and it's it's been very. I'm trying to find the right word. Yes, it's been a very beautiful process, and coming back to or I guess finding myself, because I'm saying coming back to myself probably isn't the right way to put it, but it has also been very difficult, and lots of big feelings for myself. So I think the point of I say unmasked parenting. I think the point of doing that was to make sure other parents, maybe who are also learning themselves as they're also learning their children, have know that they're not alone in that. There's that there is support out there for that process, and they don't have to constantly second guess themselves.
For your autistic children, what's their strength? Some people are more stronger with the arts, the performance, or writing, or maybe science.
Yeah. So my oldest is right now is very infatuated with like Legos and building. And she's just very she's brilliant when it comes to um, you know piecing it together, and and doing it in such a she does it so quickly. And that's she has said to me repeatedly, like, I like to build, and building is something that makes me feel you know good about myself. So that right now, that's something that's definitely one of her biggest strengths. Another one, I think that I've noticed over this just recently, is planning. I have not one to plan. It gives me anxiety. I don't like sporadic plans either, but planning ahead is something that can feel very overwhelming. And she has, I guess, adopted some of things that she's seen me use as I'm learning to cope with keeping up with the load and the demands. And she's picked up on that, and she will plan our weekend for us, so I don't have to. Um, so she's building these skills and things that she loves. Definitely a leader, taking leadership, and says that she would like to be a movie director one day. Um, she wants to, produce and direct movies, and so she does create shows for us all the time. So she's very creative. And then my middle child is very right now. I would say her strength is just charisma. I think about one of my favorite actors, Jack Black. Just has that charm. Is just her, wholly herself, and incredibly funny and clever, but also compassionate. And so I think her strengths right now, it does seem to kind of be around that social piece and interacting with others. And then my youngest child, he's almost 3, so we're still learning. He is nonverbal, and we're actually waiting for his AAC, his support system to get here so that we can help him build, communicate on that. But he is very in tune with other people's emotions at such an early age. So, they're all have, they all have so many strengths, and where they do struggle, I've noticed that, there's no shame in it. They're very open and honest about it. And I guess the thing I say to them, and I know it's very bland, but it's just like, all you can do is try and try again, because life is just a practice. So that's kind of where we are with all that right now. Thank you for asking me that.
You're welcome. Yep. So this is this owl. It's a purple owl. That's Athena.
I see it.
I painted that. It's my original.
Oh, wow. So when did you start doing? When did you start painting?
When my daughter was younger, and but I always enjoyed arts. And in school, one of my first drawings, I did a pencil drawing, squares and side squares, and used watercolors. And it was, my art piece was entered in a contest, and I won first place in the visual arts for painting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was.
So were you aware then that that was something that you're incredibly passionate about, and that's,
I was aware. It's just, it's finding my words, and difficult how other children respond around you. Not always nice. So.
No.
But otherwise, I've been doing a lot of painting. So I'm in May. I'll be in mother and daughter art show, and at the library. That's the Bayport Library. And in July, it'll be the South Country Library. So I have 2 shows.
You do that you said you're doing one with your daughter?
Yes, I do that with my daughter. I show her work.
Oh, wow.
So
so she is also an artist.
Yeah, so for 2 people on the autism spectrum, and my daughter's nonverbal.
Okay.
Autistic, but nonverbal.
And so that's also her way of.
Yeah, but nonverbal autistic could be no language, limited language, cannot ask questions or tell the story who you are. So all these things, I think it fit into that. And sometimes it changes. So he might not find his words now, and maybe it could be as he gets older, he might start to talk. It's whatever he finds that connection.
Right.
And you hear the stories, when you move forward, you hear the stories that actually happen. But he will hear you. He hears you, and I write poems with my daughter, and that gives her another platform of communication, and that could give you a platform.
Yes.
So, college for you, what was it like for you in college? Did you go?
I did go. I'm not really sure how I got through, to be honest with you. But it was incredibly difficult. And, I really struggled both mentally and physically throughout that time. But I managed, I just kept pushing through until I got through. And then, there was a period in between before I started grad school where I was just feeling like this is not where I want to be. This is not what meant to be doing. So, I felt uh, that call to help others. And that's when I went back to school to become a licensed clinical mental health counselor. Um, and, I felt myself come more, I guess, alive in that environment. It was more clinical, it was more scientific, it was more around my interests of studying and understanding people and why we do what we do. So, that it came much more easier. So I didn't struggle as much, I think, mentally. But it was very difficult being away from family. I really struggled with feeling very lonely because it was very hard for me to make other connections that I felt were very authentic, right? So very deep connections. I'm not one to I've always struggled with making friendships that are, I don't know the other word for it, but, just kind of, we're friends and we just kind of talk about this and that. So I didn't really know how to do that. I still don't.
What would you like to share for the autism for April, as a therapist, a mother on the autism spectrum and her children? What do you think that the direction we find in our world should, go towards?
I wish I had one answer for that. I definitely see, in like the clinical field, people moving in the right direction, focusing more on, seeing people at, the whole person and not just pieces of them. And being more, recognizing that this, being autistic or ADHD does not, or neurodivergent in any manner, like it's not of course it can be disabling, but it's not a deficit as a human being. And I'm seeing that more and more so in the clinical field. However, as I do take part in like social media forums, there still is a lot of people who are misinformed. And so I think education, finding ways, I think we've talked, I don't know if you and I have talked about this before, but like the double empathy problem and like finding ways to communicate with others who are not neurodivergent or autistic, and helping them to kind of understand what our experience is like. So yes, I think education and information is a key right now, continuing to advocate for ourselves, which is so hard because it's very hard for a lot of people to advocate for themselves when they're just trying to take care of themselves. So those of us who can will continue to.
Yes. I would like to see working with businesses for autism.
Yes.
So
Yes.
with the autistic gifts, working together with businesses, so to promote the artist or a poet,
Yes.
or maybe a science. It depends on the business. It can be in any field.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And
I think
working together.
definitely in the business world, it's lacking.
Yes, I think that will be beautiful. Like
Mm-hmm.
theater, acting, all that's important
Yes.
to take part on the stage, to be in a scene. Yeah, could be an artist, for the sceneries, or could be, be the narrator. Could be ones that just moves on stage and be like a prop. You don't always have to have the words to be part of something.
Right.
You know
I
what I mean?
mean, I
So
think it just
it's like,
like
yes. staying next to somebody while they're acting. It's just that feeling. For, you know, for others, hopefully they have the understanding so it can make it work for autistic people.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that's good. A builder with your daughter, and maybe she'd be a movie person. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I could see her like creating the sets. Um, something I could see, because she's mentioned she'd like to build for the drama club they have at her school. She's saying that next year she'd like to partake in that. She was not feeling comfortable with doing it this year, and that's okay. That's not something. This is really about what's gonna, what matters to you, and what's gonna help make you feel important and that you matter. And so I think after watching more plays, so we just started going to plays. We was like, let's see more plays. Let's see more art. Let's see more cast and crew. And, as we continue to do that, it seemed that she felt more comfortable with the idea of participating in that in the future. Maria, I appreciate you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you, Tara, for sharing your stories, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Athena Autistic Artists College. Stay tuned to the next episode.